The infamous Gary Windass, Mikey North, is no stranger to violence on the cobbles of Coronation Street. Known for his dark past, including the murder of loan shark Rick Nealon, Gary has tried to redeem himself, but the demons of his past always lurk beneath the surface. Next week, Gary's violent tendencies re-emerge with a vengeance as he targets troubled teen Mason Radcliffe. Lucatulin, Mason, who has been in and out of young offenders, was recently sent back to custody after being framed by Betsy Swain, Sidney Martin, for stealing a speed doll customer's purse. Although Mason's criminal behavior is well documented, including a terrifying knife incident involving Liam Connor, Charlie Renshaw, his latest stint in custody wasn't entirely his fault. Betrayed by Betsy and shunned by the community, Mason's release is met with anger and suspicion from the residents of Weatherfield. When Liam hears that Mason is back on the streets, he's filled with dread. The trauma of last year's attack is still fresh, and he fears for his safety. Desperate, he texts his stepdad Gary, knowing that Gary will protect him at any cost. And, as expected, Gary springs into action, his protective instincts flaring dangerously. But what begins as a concern for Liam's safety quickly escalates into something much darker. Gary's rage is palpable as he storms over to confront Mason, who is trying to keep a low profile. He doesn't care that Mason is just a kid, only that this kid once terrorized his stepson. The moment he sees Mason, all rationality evaporates. With Liam, Betsy, and Dylan Wilson, Liam McShane, watching from a distance, Gary grabs Mason and violently pins him against a wall. It's a terrifying scene as Gary's face contorts with fury, his voice booming as he threatens the frightened teen. But before Gary can go any further, Stu Carpenter, Bill Fellows, arrives, barely managing to pull Gary off. Stu's intervention prevents what could have been a far more serious altercation, but the damage is done. Mason's face is pale, his body trembling as he struggles to regain his composure. Gary, meanwhile, is still seething, his eyes blazing with an intensity that shows he's far from finished. The incident leaves a lasting impact on everyone present. Liam is conflicted, relieved that Gary stood up for him, yet disturbed by the brutal way he did it. Betsy, whose actions set this whole chain of events in motion, is racked with guilt, wondering if her need for revenge pushed things too far. And Dylan, witnessing the darker side of Gary, is left shaken and confused. Later in the week, Gary's anger only grows when he hears that Stu has given Mason his job back at Speed Doll. For Gary, it's a betrayal. He can't comprehend why anyone would give Mason a second chance, especially after everything he's done. Gary's obsession with punishing Mason takes a dangerous turn as he begins to plot his next move. He's determined to make Mason pay, but his fixation is blinding him to the bigger picture. Meanwhile, Mason is hiding a secret of his own. Despite his tough exterior and defiant attitude, he's struggling more than anyone realizes. When he returns to Speed Doll after closing and rolls out a sleeping bag, it becomes heartbreakingly clear that Mason has been sleeping rough since his release. Homeless and alone, he's been using the restaurant as a makeshift shelter, trying to survive in a world that has turned its back on him. It's a poignant moment that adds a new layer to Mason's character. Despite his mistakes, he's still just a kid, scared and desperate, with no one to turn to. But will anyone see through his bravado to the vulnerable boy underneath? And what will happen if Gary finds out the truth? The situation is a powder keg, and it feels like it's only a matter of time before everything explodes. Gary's vendetta is spiraling out of control, and his inability to forgive or forget threatens to destroy more than just Mason's life. As he teeters on the edge, everyone in Weatherfield is left wondering just how far Gary will go. Will he be able to pull back from the brink, or is this the beginning of another dark chapter in the life of Gary Windass?